A lot of Final Fantasy XIV players are scared to touch Party Finder. I got a comment on my last video mentioning that they struggled with anxiety when thinking about attempting hard content. Some of the best experiences in the entire game are gated behind difficult encounters such as extreme trials and savage raids. This video is for anybody who struggles with this. I'll show you how to make it a fun and safe experience regardless of skill level. And stick around because I have a question for you all at the end of the video. So real quick, we should talk about what Party Finder even is for those who don't know. Party Finder is the system in Final Fantasy XIV that allows you to group up with other players with much more control than Duty Finder. Instead of simply joining a random group of players, you have fine-tuned control over what jobs can join and a few ways to signal the intent of the group, including the ability to add a description with a few lines of text. These options can be set however you'd like. You can set the group objective to practice, for example, if you're simply trying to learn a fight. You can also click this button here to show that first-timers are welcome to join. Maybe you're close to beating a fight, then you can set it to duty completion to signal that you're trying to complete the encounter. Lots of people use this and set it to duty complete because they want people who have already cleared the encounter to join so that they can farm it over and over again to get rare drops like mounts and weapons. So what makes this scary? Tons of players stress about how well they play, so they worry about things like not doing enough damage or dying a lot. Part of the package of doing harder content is that you're going to have a hard time. You're going to die a bunch, mess up mechanics, and probably wipe the party as you learn the encounter. For a lot of people, this doesn't feel great. Also, while yes, the Final Fantasy XIV community is one of the friendliest in gaming, it's not perfect. People can definitely be a little more abrasive once you get into the hard stuff. There can be a lot more tension and you'll probably run into players eventually that are just rude for one reason or another. They don't like how you, someone else, or even themselves are performing and start blaming people. Maybe they want the party to do mechanics their way, or maybe they just had a bad day. Whatever the case, it's not cool for people to do this and I understand not wanting to deal with it. You just want to have fun without engaging in conflict with other players. So many people have gotten burned by bad experiences in Party Finder, which caused them to never want to go back into it. Fortunately, there are ways to prevent or at least minimize how much you have to deal with these situations. First off, let's make one thing clear. You will die a lot, and this is okay. Everybody else will die too. It's not your job to compare yourself to anybody else, and you don't have to worry about holding back a group. Everyone's there to learn. Let's start with what you can do to prepare before ever entering a party. Final Fantasy does have a really solid guide and rating community full of people who want to help. Guides can show you how the fight works before you ever step into it. Now I do want to say that I strongly encourage people to try content blind first. Experiencing a fight for the first time is truly a one-of-a-kind experience. And if you like solving puzzles and figuring things out, having a safe environment to do so can be one of the most fun things in the game. And I've had tons of people join me to do this for all kinds of content. That being said, not everybody enjoys figuring things out, which is totally okay. Maybe a certain part of the fight is just really tricky for you, or maybe you just don't want to deal with any surprises. There will still be plenty of challenge to fights even if you know what to do before going in, and executing on the mechanics will still be just as fun. So definitely consider watching guides if you think it'll help. Likewise, there are a lot of guides and resources on how to better play your job. So if you're worried about things like doing more damage or just mitigating better, it's worth doing research just to see where you can improve. Just know that especially for extreme content, you don't need to walk in with the perfect rotation and mastery of your job. It's just nice to have a goal of what to work towards. Just don't let it stop you if you're not playing perfectly. Now let's talk about joining parties or even making your own. First, we'll talk about joining parties, since that might be a little less scary than making one yourself. The idea here is to look through Party Finder for the content that you want to try. Keep in mind that the content won't show up if you don't have it unlocked already, so make sure to unlock whatever you need first. If you're new or just anxious, look for keywords like fresh, blind, and learning in the description text, as well as parties that are set to practice. These parties will be the most beginner-friendly ones that you find. Fresh means that people are going to be new to the content. Blind means that they haven't seen it before and don't know anything about what to expect. Blind and fresh might sound a little redundant together, but a lot of fresh players will still look up a video beforehand to at least know how the fight works. Just know that watching a video isn't required. And lastly, learning means that they are interested in learning the fight and are willing to learn from others who already know. All of these are good signs that the party is perfect for someone who really wants to dip their toes into hard content. I'd also recommend trying out extreme trials before hopping into savage content if you've never done it before. For the most part, savage raids are definitely harder than extreme trials, so it might be best to work your way up to those. Something people don't talk about enough is that a lot of fights actually take a ton of inspiration from the normal version. A lot of extreme trial mechanics will take mechanics from the normal version, speed them up, give them less obvious indicators, and layer them together in different ways. This means that running the normal version can be a great way to warm yourself up for the extreme version of the encounter. It'll really give you the ability to compare mechanics and notice when things look similar. Now, while it may feel like there's more pressure, I do encourage people to try making a Party Finder listing of their own. It allows you to set everything up the way you want it to be. Often, I'll make these when I'm new to a fight and put both fresh and blind. Here's an example of the party finder description that I'll use if you want to copy and use it yourself. A description like this sets exactly the tone that I want. If I'm just learning a fight, I don't want people to come in and try to force me to use guides or every strat that they know. While it's totally fine for people to want to play that way, it's not what I want when I'm trying to introduce a fight to myself or anyone else. I just want to have fun and learn the hard way sometimes. And of course I still want to clear the fight, but I want it to be a lighthearted experience. And I've met a lot of friendly players this way, so it definitely works. It's worth noting that there are a handful of discords you can join to find other players who would be willing to join your parties. This can be a great way to find people aside from just relying on Party Finder itself, and they exist for all forms of content from Boja to Ultimates. Once you filled the party leader should do a ready check to see if people are good to hop into the instance. Now we can talk about what happens once we're in the instance. Communicating is super important. Once you start pulling, it's worth to try and communicate when you notice things or have ideas. Just make sure that you're not stopping to type in the middle of the pull itself. In lurting parties, it's really important that people do this. There are no stupid questions, and when you speak up, you might be helping out someone else who's too shy to say anything. Once everybody's ready, typically the main tank can do a countdown to start the pull. If you're with a bunch of players who don't have much raiding experience, you might want to communicate this yourself if you find that no one's doing anything. Now for the hard stuff. As you play, you might have feedback directed at you. Maybe someone noticed that you were standing in the wrong spot and wanted to let you know. It's important to be ready for this. Often, people are just trying to help out, but sometimes people might be rude about it as well. Everyone's here to learn, and I'm not here to personally tell you what you should put up with or tolerate, but just try to keep an open mind and not assume the worst of intentions from the get-go. Ultimately, if someone's making you uncomfortable, you should say so. And if it's not a party that you made, it's alright to step out if you're feeling stressed or getting a bad vibe from someone else. And you also definitely don't need to apologize every time you mess up a mechanic. Mistakes are expected, and it doesn't make you a lesser player for messing up. That's how everyone learns. If you are running the party and someone's being problematic, it's your call to kick them if you'd like. And while it may seem a little nuclear, it's okay to disband too. I know that for players with anxiety, a lot of this may sound pretty daunting, but I promise that if you continue to push yourself little by little, you'll find ways to make it work and learn how to implement a lot of this for yourself. Something else that's important to keep in mind is the blacklist feature. You can always go into your context menu and blacklist any player that you have recently played with in an instance. Any blacklisted players won't be able to join your parties in the future. This is something that I recommend considering if you encounter any unpleasant individuals. If someone wants a more serious or focused experience, they should be joining the appropriate party for that. That goes for everybody. That's why it's important to filter your parties up for what experience you want. It's also important for people to be patient with others and for you to be patient with yourself. If you take 10 lockouts to learn a fight or more, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a race. You don't have to rush to learn or clear something. Just go at a pace that is fun for you and you'll have a good time. Last but definitely not least, if you really enjoy someone that you play with in Party Finder, consider adding them as a friend to play with in the future. Having someone that you know is safe to play with and learn with is invaluable. While this video covers a lot of the big points, it doesn't cover everything. Everybody has specific circumstances and hurdles to deal with. If you want to talk more about this, I'm happy to have a conversation about it in my Discord. The more people I can help to experience the fun parts of the game, the better. And for those who did make it this far, if there's anything else that you'd like me to talk about, please leave it in the comments. I really want to up the pace at which I'm making videos, and I want to help out as many people as I can. And if you want to really help, check out this video I made about the Manderville relic weapons and why people were upset about them. And I'll catch you in the next one.